So we get to the docks, bypass bell tower guards, find the shed, open the locker, and get Tong's package. Tong immediately contacts us, which somehow freaks Jensen out.
Tong? How did you get this frequency?
Ancient Chinese secret. Now listen.
But we already know that Tong was going to contact us as soon as Adam picked up the package. That was the actual plan. Tong is going to guide us through the level. But was this something Jensen didn't think of? It seems Adam isn't quite thinking how any of this is supposed to work out, like by sharing contact frequencies, but instead he's just following Tong's orders. Also, we can get on a ship we already know exists and where, but because the story wants us to follow Tong, we are forced to do so. Tong tells us to put this package in Administrator Wong's office and put it on the bastard's desk and trigger it. Okay, well that sounds like a bomb to me. Adam finally has the sense to ask how this helps his scenario.
Sound good?
Sounds like I'm doing you a favor. How does it help me?
Tong replies, the explosion should distract the guards. Or we could just sneak past the guards, as we have been doing all throughout the entire game. Apparently creating an explosive diversion of some docks is very important, and putting that in the administrator's desk is a good idea. Now, unless we're actually going to kill someone in the office, why would we need to blow up an office? Unless there was some sort of hard copy or something there that couldn't be destroyed through software or hacking. Because if it's soft copies, well, those would have backups. So Tong may have some really dirty secret he wants eliminated, aside from being the largest mob boss in the city where everything he does is illegal. So this must be some really big dirt or something.
Confuse the shit out of me.
Must be some pretty heavy shit he's hiding this time.
Yeah. I don't will ever find out.
Through some idle guard chatter, we find that Wang is changing the registry which hides what he's shipping, which is scaring the guards, who also double as dock workers. An email from a terminal from one of the actual dock workers says they can't keep silent about what's going on in the docks, although they're scared of being a whistleblower. This is a nice subtle way to foreshadow and build suspense on the mystery of what's in the shipments. So Jensen plants and arms the bomb, which has a 10-second timer, and for some reason, instead of simply running out the door he entered, he freaks out, pushes the desk away, picks up a chair, tries to break the window with the chair, fails, and then charges the window, breaking through it. And then the C4 bomb goes off. The entire floor of the building explodes, and Adam somehow lands on the concrete alive. Keep in mind, a 2-story drop from Detroit on his augmented legs kill Adam, but an exploding C4 bomb that pushes Adam through a strongly enforced breaking sharp glass window is okay, where he lands from 2 stories on his side, which isn't really augmented. He just stands up and holds his torso, so I'm guessing he's a bit bruised. Adam starts running away from the guards and the explosion he caused when we then see Tong's son, who's not using his cloaking device, and Adam states this.
So that distraction wasn't just for me, was it, Tong?
And we're like, wait a moment, we just saved him from the previous mission. What was the point of all this? Were they planning this all along and we just happened to be exactly the same place we needed to go? What was Tong's son doing? There's another story in here, but we're not being told what's going on. And if Tong's son was putting himself in danger, was Adam just insurance in case he screwed up? We're left scratching our heads. Then Adam sort of limps over and opens up what looks like a random cargo container that just so happens to have some sort of life pod thing in it. No detective work to figure out which life pod it was, what the number of the cargo container was. It just seems Adam could have just walked into any of these things and totally neglected whatever Tong was asking for him to do. Then Adam contacts Pritchard that he's going off the grid and he has no idea where he's going, much like the rest of the audience. So a few days have passed and Adam wakes up still in the pod. Maybe he was in some sort of suspended cryo animation, we're not sure, because there was no food, water, or toilet facilities in here, so something must have happened. He manages to contact Pritchard, who said he's been offline for days and that Adam's actually in Singapore in some sort of warehouse. However, Adam's GPL went dark as soon as Pritchard pinged him, and that's bad, so Pritchard recommends that we go destroy the jamming signal so Pritchard can follow Adam better. I'm not really sure why that's important. Adam, in this case, finally disagrees.
I've got more important things to do than help you keep tabs on me. If Megan and her team are here, there's no time to waste.
And to Adam, that sort of makes sense. He just wants to save the researchers as well as Megan. But if there's a jamming signal, wouldn't Pritchard also be able to hone in on those other scientists' GPLs as well? That would make sense, but Pritchard never says that it's a good idea to stop the jamming signal in the general area to find everyone else's GPL signal.
Told me you saw him talking to the Queen. I'm sure she was probably barking orders at him again. Looks like this show Pat Davis. Question is, who's headline? Things would be a lot easier if Darrow was around. Anyway, I better get back to storage in case he decides to spin a surprise inspection on us.
The idle guard chatter tells us that the CO and the Queen is here, who are probably the two cyborgs we saw in cutscenes. They also tell us Darrow was here, but is no longer around. And right now the music is really fast-paced, and I'm not sure where this is coming from as we're still sneaking around, unsure of what's going on or where we are exactly, and Adam's character and motivation hasn't really changed. If anything, he'd be hungry and thirsty. So because the game radar gives us a plot point or flag we have to follow, we have to hack this dedicated terminal, which just so happens to be the signal jammer Adam wasn't concerned about before. So Pritchard gets the 4 GPL signals, which are Adam's and the 3 other scientists, but not Megan's. Adam tells Pritchard to tell Seraph, but he's not around because he and others got invited to Panchaea in the Arctic. Pritchard somehow can't call up his boss despite being able to talk directly to Adam, who is still behind a GPL jamming signal. I guess they stopped using mobile phone technology. So we're off to look for those 3 other scientists' GPL signals. We find Dr. Faraday, and we find out the other scientists were involved in building that new biochip due to fear of losing their life. This signal can ultimately control people's minds from the biochip, and that Megan is in some sort of secured zone. Adam recommends creating 3 incidents in each of the labs the other scientists are in, as well as distribute a virus that disrupts the people in charge, whoever they are, from tracking everyone's GPL signals. Timing will also be key, so Adam has to get all 3 scientists to make a distraction at the same time. Adam tells the doctor to make a distraction, whatever that is going to be, we don't know, signal him by using a GPL vibration when Adam uploads the disabling GPL virus. So it's off to find the other scientists. We meet Nia and break her out of her Stockholm Syndrome issue. We then go down a barricaded elevator and find Dr. Koss, who has Dr. Sevchenko's virus that won't only disable GPLs, but all of the equipment in the area.
I've already been in touch with Colvin and Faraday, and we've come up with a plan. If the 3 of you set off simultaneous explosions in your labs, it might allow me to access the secured area and find Megan.
Oh, so he's going to generate an explosion. Is every scientist going to do that? Okay, well, I'm glad you told that to Dr. Koss. I sure hope you told that to Nia. Here's hoping the scientists have that planned as well. I guess these other 2 scientists are also held against their will. So we upload the virus. Adam contacts Pritchard to send a very strong signal to everyone's GPL so it vibrates.
Pritchard, are you still tracking the scientists?
Of course.
Simulate feedback along that route. Make it strong enough to vibrate their implants. They have to feel it.
A signal, eh? Not bad, Jensen. I'm sending it now.
Did he know how to do that? Oh, he didn't. Oh, I'm glad it worked out. We eventually find a room that has a bunch of fully articulated muscular system human dummies that randomly change their pose every 5 seconds. Considering this is a secure facility in the middle of some mysterious location, it seems a wee bit pretentious, being more of an art display than a scientific experiment. Well, fancy that. We then encounter Zhao again for some reason, and Adam explains to her that he's figured out her and her conspiracy fellow's plan, which is to conduct some remote software upgrades that limit augmentations and, of course, control people's minds. But is that really the real plan? When did Adam figure this all out exactly? I mean, it could be the real plan, but do we have any substantial proof? There's lots of application for this kind of device. We can guess the whole malfunction in the limb clinic upgrade before was caused by them, but there's quite a lot of applications for this sort of update of firmware. And if it really was to corner the market and create a monopoly, well, I think the market would catch on to that and correct the problem and make a new marketplace, like fixing firmware that turns you into an abomination. But hey, Adam can speculate all he wants. And if you did go to the limb clinic and get the new chip upgrade, Zhao can turn off all of your augments. And then Zhao admits that Adam figured out their plans, and like the nefarious villain she is, she gloats. Did the writers suddenly forget how to write characters and just started making up cartoon villains now? And then Namir just stands up from one of those muscular dummy platforms where he was posing in like a dummy. It's like the only thing human that's left of him is his skull. But why did he even bother to stand on one of the platforms and act like a dummy and still not get the drop on Adam? He wasn't wearing any clothes, so Adam wouldn't be able to recognize him. And it was just the most ridiculous setup. Not only Zhao to admit to the plan Adam just guessed, or maybe she's just messing with him, let alone for Namir to stand around like a dummy, and he didn't even take advantage of it. He just picks up Adam and throws him on the floor, and then starts shooting at him. What is going on here? Namir just reduced himself to a stupid, evil Bond henchman. So then you fight Namir in this ridiculous-looking room.
Not until you tell me where Megan is.
You've lost her, Jensen. Men like us, we never get back the things we love.
Although I don't think Megan's actually dead, I wouldn't be surprised if Megan would have her brain transplanted to a giant spider or something. Maybe even Namir's head. So we go up some stairs and we find this creepy little white girl's room where Megan is. So it turns out Megan was in fact captured for her research, which was actually her discovery of Adam's DNA, which allows implants to bond to skin easily and doesn't require continued injections of neuropozyne. Her captors wanted to use her research to make the control chip, which she didn't want to do, but somehow David Seraph managed to contact her and convince her that it would be for the benefit of humanity that she helped with the research. However, she also got in touch with Hugh Darrow, who then convinced her she was wrong, and Hugh Darrow was working with Zhao and Tai Yong and the others to figure out what their plan was, all to stop them from using this control signal that they made. Seems Megan is easily influenced here. And before we can get some emotions or personal issues dealt with over Adam's quest to find Megan, we get a real-time broadcast of Hugh on a giant screen, and he goes full retard. I'm guessing Megan was watching TV before, or TVs of the future turned themselves on. Either way, it seems Hugh modified the control signal to turn everyone who had the new upgraded chip to go bloodthirsty crazy. This is an Armageddon-style worldwide catastrophe, where a signal turns everyone into a murderous lunatic. Luckily, Megan protected Adam with an injection of nanobots, and now he's okay. But why Hugh Darrow would do this when he was specifically went undercover to stop something of a catastrophe of this type from happening, and he does it himself, we don't know. It makes no sense. How could he convince Megan to play along, and then he ends up doing something even more horrific? Why couldn't he just use Megan's expertise to hijack the project or something? Who goes? We can't figure this out. Either way, I guess we just don't have time to talk about her feelings or motives or whatever the object of her desire is, even though it's right in front of us. So everything's going crazy, and Megan decides to go escort the scientist to the hangar, and by her recommendation, it's Adam's job to go open the hangar doors. While we're in an elevator, we contact Malik to pick us up, who was in the air ever since Pritchard pinged us, which means she was waiting in Hengsha for days, took off to Singapore, and was literally hovering in the air all this time. So we get the hangar doors open, Malik picks up all the scientists, but for some reason doesn't take Adam with her. Why? Well, this is why. Despite Adam's admission that they're not done talking, which shows that Adam is not some static brick and he does have feelings, which is a good thing, Megan tells him he has to stop Hugh Darrow's control signal, and he's the only one who can. She says Adam must use the Leo shuttle, which is a low Earth orbit shuttle, to get to Panchaea, which is in the Arctic. It is literally a rocket that gets our protagonist to the next part of the story. No build-up, no explanation what this thing is for, or why Hugh Darrow, a crippled old crazy rich man, would ever need to shoot himself from a rocket to one of his 5 different Panchaea towers on the planet, or anywhere on the planet. Who programmed the trajectory of this thing anyway? It's really a big stretch. It's quite confusing. Now, interestingly enough, low Earth orbit is up in the maximum range of 2,000 kilometers above sea level, which is the thermosphere, where we keep the International Space Station. You would need speeds of roughly 27,000 kilometers per hour to get there, so they kind of got that right. And considering the distance from Singapore to the Arctic, which is approximately 7,000 miles, in a straight line based on the curvature of the planet at sea level, or 11.2 thousand kilometers, and Adam's been in the air for about 23 minutes, which means he's traveled about 9.6 thousand kilometers, not taking into account a maximum apogee distance of the 2,000 K above sea level, or else he'd be in Earth orbit somewhere. Although from his window, he's probably only around 300 km, so which is still in the thermosphere. It takes roughly 10 minutes for a rocket-powered space shuttle to get to low Earth orbit from sea level, and this shuttle is going a few times that distance over the course of 23 minutes, so yeah, that's kind of believable. And since we don't know the exact location of Pangaea in the Arctic, the distance for the math isn't so bad. So they got the numbers generally right, so we're totally cool. But this is still just a contrived solution to get Adam to point B, when more believable alternatives exist. Although it does help make for a pretty cool marketing video, but the symbolism of the Icarus motif, going to the sun, Adam's motivation, that is to find Megan, is a bit rushed out the door, as the opportunity for exposition was lost, as we're just shown another cutscene. They could have combined it with Adam's reluctance, his longing, his regret, or any other feeling he might have had, like the sudden acceleration of going to Mach 20. But unfortunately, nothing. But of course, there's another conflict, and there's a problem in the flight itself. The parachute won't open, and Adam's rocket plummets right into the water, which at rocket speed, according to display, which is 25,000 kmph, is the equivalent of turning Adam, his rocket, and everything else in it into molecules. Nothing would survive this. And we're not talking about the impact into the water. We're talking about planetary re-entry, where his rocket would just burn up, unless it somehow started slowing down by increasing its drag coefficient. So we have to assume that the 25,000 kmph is a static value, and not a real-time airspeed gauge you might find on an aircraft. The angle of attack is also quite steep, which is ideal for planetary re-entry, as aerodynamics aren't really useful for maneuvering when coming from anywhere between 15 to 25 Mach units. So the more atmosphere, the greater the distance, the more drag and opportunity to slow down. The issue becomes whether the rocket is strong enough to withstand the massive amount of heat generated by friction. Whether Adam can withstand that heat, let alone the g-force of his body, we don't know. The year may be 2027, but cybernetics doesn't quite trump planetary physics. So while the narrative does show us a rather believable entry into low Earth orbit with this happenstance rocket, it's the re-entry and magical deceleration from supersonic speeds into the atmosphere and to splashdown, which is not too believable. So why the conclusion to the descent wasn't very believable, we at least have to give them half marks for starting it off right.